Hello everyone, welcome to another Take a Peek episode. This week we are taking a peek at Orbox C. Now Orbox C is an indie puzzle game developed by GameBalance and published by Wins84, available for $3 on Steam PC. Coming out of Steam Greenlight, it's the first game for both the publisher and the developer on Steam, but it's not their first game developed. There are two previous Orbox titles in Orbox and Orbox B, certainly a clever way of getting around numbering your games by using the alphabet here, as the third game is Orbox C. They were originally browser games, and the devs have been busy over the last 2 decades in the game industry as a whole. Orbox C, again, the first one to come to Steam, and hopefully the other 2 games will make their way to Steam in the form of an Orbox pack, just to add more of the Orbox family here on Steam. So, the TLDW, for all those of you that want a quick and short what the heck is going on and what do I think about the game, is that for $3, Orbox C is a good buy for a few hours of puzzle-solving entertainment. There are some good points and some drawbacks, but the dollar per hour value of the game is absolutely there, and at $3, it is a cheap purchase. It does come with achievements and 8 trading cards, if you're interested in that sort of thing. And if you want to know more about the game itself, go ahead and keep listening. If not, feel free to click away and you won't hurt my feelings any. So, back to the actual review. There is no options menu to speak of, which honestly is fine in a game like this. You have your option to turn on or off the music and sound effects, and then a third option to put the game into window or full screen, and that's all you really need. Almost the entire game can be learned and played without any knowledge of the English language, even though all of the text is in English. And that's a huge plus for the game. Most of the time you only ever need to play with one hand at your leisure as well. So there's definitely a degree of accessibility to this game that's unseen in most games, and really does make Orbox C easy to access for anyone, really regardless of what your situation is. The one thing it doesn't have is a way to move with, say, using a mouse-only situation. That's not really in the game. It is keyboard only. That's really the only drawback on that part, but really it's a very accessible game, very casual puzzler, so very solid to be accessible. The game itself is akin to playing high-level chess. Each puzzle requires thought, planning, and a good understanding of the mechanics before you can attempt a solution. Logic and forward thinking reign supreme in the methods to solve the puzzles, and reckless movement will only be an exercise in frustration. Each step up in difficulty is very obvious, making the hard puzzles very difficult to solve. For several later puzzles, it's necessary to plan out your entire path to the exit before taking your first move, as it's possible to lose several puzzles with one wrong step. Which means on those hard puzzles, it actually might be simpler to get out a paper and pencil and map out the whole path by hand before you ever actually attempt the puzzle in the first place. Because if you, like I said, if you make one wrong step, you could just lose outright. You could just have to redo the puzzle. The controls in the game are about as simple as they can get, though. Despite the difficulty of the puzzles, it's all down to the puzzle design and not the controls. They're very responsive. The arrow keys, or WASD, are your movement, and you'll move in the direction pressed. But again, they're very, very sensitive. So if you accidentally, if you fat finger something, you can screw up what you were trying to accomplish. You can actually go the wrong direction and have to restart the puzzle. So be very precise in the buttons that you push. There's no turning at all, so once you start going in a direction, you're not going to stop until you hit something or you go off the edge. The spacebar advances the game to the next level, and the R key resets the puzzle if you make a mistake or if you get stuck, and that can happen. And that's it. It's a very straightforward control scheme. Again, WASD, arrow keys, spacebar, and R. That's it. There are 210 puzzles across 7 puzzle packs. There are 12 major block types, 3 different methods of scoring, around 6 hours of gameplay in my experience, and a pretty good soundtrack overall. There's 4 difficulties you can progress to the next difficulty by completing 100% of the levels of the previous difficulty. That means if you are a veteran puzzle solver, you still have to start on the easy puzzles first. Normally, this would be frustrating, but the easy puzzles are very short and are necessary to explain the mechanics of the game. And actually going from easy and moving up the difficulty levels does scale really well and use a lot of the same tactics that you would have learned in the previous difficulty. Some of the easy puzzles as well are a simple ride around the level with very little thought required, giving some of the easier levels a very flashy appearance and an easy win. You just kind of go for a ride, and then that's it. You're good. So don't worry about that. Again, there are 60 easy levels. A lot of the game is down to the easy levels. Again, the whole accessibility thing. When you fail a level, your old path is remembered by the game and displayed to you as a gray dot trail in the background. If this ends up being very distracting, you can remove it by running off of the edge several times in a row, as the game only saves a couple of iterations of your moves. So soon enough, you can have a clean slate to work off of again, if the dots in the background really are kind of a distraction to you. Now let's get into the game itself. So the way the game teaches you is very effective. By setting you up with a new concept and then giving you a simple puzzle with a clear solution to understand this new concept and see it in action. Each new block has its own mini tutorial. There's a boring normal block. Bombs and ice are your destruction blocks. Stars, or orbs if you want to call them that, for collection. Teleporters, sensors, where you have to hit each side. The labyrinth, where you get to stop in place and choose where you get to go. Gate blocks that close when you go through them. Throw blocks that, once you pass through, become normal, boring blocks. The triangles that shoot you off at 90 degrees from where you were going. And then your exit and character blocks. And the character block is also called the Orbox. While many of these components are the same between puzzles, the techniques used to solve each puzzle, the win condition, and the approach to each puzzle differs. Some puzzles have you seeking an endpoint, while others have you blowing up all the bombs or destroying all the ice, activate all the sensors, or gathering all of the stars. However, some patterns do emerge in effectively solving each puzzle, such as needing to move in square patterns or switching back and forth between one side and the other. Really the win condition is less important, and the method of solving is where the skill comes in, and that's where the pattern is. However, it is never immediately clear how to solve the puzzle, and that in itself is part of the puzzle, is how to solve it. What method do you want to solve it? What your win condition is, how do you go about solving it, and finally, what is the actual solution to the puzzle really is how you break down each individual challenge that comes up. But personally, I find the switching between tasks and types of problem solving to add to the difficulty of the game that's not present in most other puzzle games out there. In one level, I needed to collect the stars. In the next, I need to move very carefully so I don't get stuck behind growth blocks. And the next after that, I have to destroy all of the bombs or all of the ice. Each situation does require a different mode of thinking, and rapidly switching between them does not allow my brain to get into any puzzle-solving groove. I'm never able to get into the zone of just sitting down and solving puzzles, and that is immersion breaking. Now, you might say immersion's not a big deal in a puzzle game, especially one that you can play at your leisure, but if you're immersed in any game, that means the game has drawn you in. Immersion makes the game more fun and can make time disappear. Orbox C never really brings me into their world, so it's very easy to lose focus and stay in reality instead of the puzzle-solving world of Orbox. I want to be in the moment, but it's too easy to get up and walk away from the game for a while without even thinking about the puzzles. Orbox C, in my opinion, could greatly benefit from organizing these types of levels together in the same way they separated out the speed levels from everything else. For example, say I only want to play puzzles that have sensors on them. I cannot easily find the levels with sensors as the goal, with sensors as the win condition, without going through each individual level one by one. having a way to search the levels or organize them would give flexibility to the player in an appealing way and possibly help with this flow problem. One of my favorites really is the sensor puzzles, and I want to sit down and say, okay, I want to play, 30 sensor puzzles, but that's just not possible right now, which is a little frustrating to me. Another major problem I had with the game is that it took me a lot of time to learn how to differentiate the player from the goal. I kept mixing the two up for the first 40 or so levels, probably upwards of the first 50 levels. The Orbox block, you, the character, looks like a traditional goal in video games, with the boxes closing in from the borders to the center. Normally this signals a point of interest or a place to go, but in this case it's the player. The colors also felt flipped in my brain, as you're a quiet black box, and the goal is a loud red block. And as I was never properly drawn into the game, it became easy to lose focus and forget which of the two blocks was my block and which was the goal. You'd think the red block, it stands out clearly against the background. You'd think that would be you moving around so you can always see yourself very clearly, but no, it's actually the other way, which it's a little frustrating at times. It's also possible there are too many elements in the game, as some of them appear very rarely, such as the labyrinth, and some don't feel unique enough. They feel too samey, like the ice blocks compared to the bombs. The ice blocks in particular do feel like they could be removed entirely and replaced with the bombs, as they serve the same essential purpose, a temporary block destroyed on impact. That being said, the ice blocks do look nice, and they could be useful for keeping a positive aesthetic in the game, making the game pretty. A lot of the blocks, like the ice blocks, do end up as decoration on some levels, and again, it makes the game look good on those specific levels, but it's not all of them. Those levels in particular, though, with a lot of those decorative blocks, ultimately leads to performance issues that really are very, very surprising. That despite the game being an extremely small game in file size, it's 37 megabytes, right? Most games that come out are at least a gigabyte, 1,000 megabytes, right? This is only 37 megabytes. But on puzzles with a large amount of pieces, especially puzzles with a lot of growth blocks, the game can drop below 30 frames per second. While this is largely a minor problem for a puzzle game of this type, it does certainly underline a mechanical issue within the code that could make the game more difficult to play on older and slower computers. However, these issues are few and far between, because there are very few levels that have all of that heavy decoration. So it's certainly not a deal breaker, but it is something to be aware of when looking at this game. And obviously, I am being a bit harsh on the game itself at this point, but that doesn't mean it's not fun to play. On the contrary, the harshness comes from wanting the game to be as good as it can be. Right now, it's a tough puzzle game that has several very fun mechanics. The difficulty scales well between the puzzles, despite a lack of fluidity, and the tutorials for how each individual block operates are explained and demonstrated very clearly. There are several creative elements, and even with the variety, it's still a very easy to understand game, very accessible, and fun to play. Overall, though, I'm not really sold on the sci-fi theme. Talking all this positivity, but I'm not sold on the sci-fi theme. I mean, you have to pick something, and the background is easy to look at, so that's awesome. But it could just as easily be a terrestrial theme, with the background matching the component's features. Snow with ice, for example. But the game doesn't lose anything by not addressing this. There are some levels that take advantage of the sci-fi theme, however, creating pictures like spaceships or planets, but ultimately the theme is not an important part of the game. There's not a huge amount of aesthetic to the game. It really is just a $3 puzzle solving experience. That's really all it is. with no real theme, no story, nothing of the sort. So, Orbox C really is a solid game, and to pick it up at the price point of $3 is a great price point. There certainly are some underlying issues, and the game itself is still very playable, though. It's approachable, it's accessible, it's a good game. The puzzles are challenging, the music is good, and it's a very easy game to set down and come back to at a later time. $3 is not a lot to spend for entertaining, puzzling gameplay, honestly. It can also be a good game for kids, as it is clean, but the more difficult levels could easily become an exercise in frustration. So do be careful if you buy this for your children. As always, the link to buy the game is down below in the description on the Steam store page. If you want to try 30 levels first before buying the game, there's also a demo available for download on CNET in the description. And that will go ahead and do it, guys. So if you liked the video, go ahead and give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, and Reddit. Sharing is the best thing you can do for the channel. Thank you to Amphid and Simon for being Patreon supporters, and I will see you guys next time with the next Take a Peek episode where we'll take a peek at something else. Thanks for watching, and DFTBA.